Thank you for coming. The Republican caucus is going to be putting in a budget article that will be an amendment to the existing budget proposal that's going to be before us tomorrow. And our article amendment deals with bridge repair. In recent weeks, we all know that there's been a lot of discussion about tolling bridges. And as we looked at that proposal, we understood that that was going to cause costs and impact our economy that we don't think is in the best interest of the people of Rhode Island. Let's deal with cost first. When you borrow $700 million, you have to, the bond companies, the Wall Street banks, will require Rhode Island to borrow an additional $200 million as a reserve. That reserve simply says that the revenue stream that we are intending to get from tolls is untested. We don't know whether it will be consistent and stable and whether it will actually fill the gap, the amount of money that we need for debt service. So instead of borrowing the 700, and 700 million is what we're actually going to put into the bridges, we'll be borrowing 900 million. That $900 million will cost us between $35 million and $45 million every year in interest payments. That's money that goes to banks, not to our bridges. So the $100 million that we're saying we're going to have to take out of our economy and out of our trucking industry will not all go towards bridges. A good part of it will go towards interest. That's a waste of money for taxpayers and for our economy. If you also look at underwriting costs, the cost of legal counsel, the cost of putting up gantries, the cost of maintaining those gantries, the cost of credit card bills, you know, the credit card companies take money from every dollar you put on your Easy Pass. That's a lot of money that will be wasted and not go towards bridge repair. We think that's the wrong way to go, because we think we can get the money from our budget. In addition to that, I don't think anybody who is reasonable can say that taking $100 million out of our economy is not going to impact it adversely. It's $100 million. Whether it comes from trucking industry, doesn't matter. They're just going to be the vehicle that will pass those dollars on to our consumers. Trucks that we say that we're going to get that just pass through Rhode Island, they can go other ways, or they can go back roads. So it's harmful, it's wastely as far as the borrowing, and it could be potentially very harmful to our economy, to our trucking industry, to all of the things that we're trying to do here to get our economy rolling again. We also think that the time delay is an issue. It takes time to issue bonds. It takes time to put up gantries. By taking the money out of our budgets right now, we can get started immediately. There's no delay. And lastly, there's no moral hazard. No one can say with certainty that we will ever just have those gantries toll 18-wheel trucks. In fact, the governor's proposal originally had much smaller trucks. If the revenue doesn't hold up, if a recession hits and trucks aren't on the road and we need to find money to pay off these bonds, we may, in future legislators, allow tolling of cars, tolling of smaller trucks. That's the moral hazard. Once the gantries are up, just a change in the software program can add more victims to the tolls. Our proposal, see the little guy saying yes, right? We're just taking money out of our current budget and using it right now, immediately, to start repairing the bridges and not incur all of these costs that will hurt taxpayers and hurt our economy. We're not breaking any new ground with this borrowing. The governor, in her original budget proposal, already had had taken money from some agencies. we're going to agree with her judgment that these agencies can fulfill their mission with the lower budgets. We're also following the lead of the former administration. Governor Chafee actually had his department save 2% based upon turnover and efficiency. So we think we can continue doing what administrators, our executive office has done in the past. We're also taking $760,000 from the Newport Grand marketing budget. That facility is under a new owner now. And I'm sure that they knew what they were buying. I don't think they need $750,000 from the taxpayers. Not when we actually need bridges fixed more. We're also delaying the reflective license plates. Not a new ground. We've done that in the past. We're just delaying it. And the $2 million from Graduate Medical School. The hospitals came before House Finance and testified earlier that they're already giving, I think it was $20 million, I have to check that. But Graduate Medical School is already being supported by the hospitals. I don't think they need taxpayer money here. I think this is a greater good for our economy. We're supporting this as a caucus. We hope that the speaker will study it and understand how good it is, because it is good. It's good for Rhode Island, it's good for taxpayers, and it's good for our economy. You have any questions?
Yeah.
Let's start off with 2% personnel savings. First of all, what do you anticipate? Layoffs, cutting salaries?
No.
How do you expect to pay $50 million?
That's through turnover and efficiency savings. And I had spoken with you earlier that the governor has started a lean government initiative. That's an incredible way to save money, just by making government more efficient. But it's not about laying off people. It's about, turnover basically means that you're not refilling positions that become empty.
Aren't they already built into the budget? Isn't that part of how every budget is built every year on some assumption of attrition?
I don't believe so, no. I think they always believe that they're going to replace people who retire. But I know that Governor Chafee was able to hold the line and he found the savings. I think Governor Raimondo can too.
Looks like you're putting back in the scoops that the final budget took out. Raimondo wanted one-time scoops. Everyone criticized her, Gary Sass, RIPAC, et cetera, for one-time scoops. So the money's back in. Looks like you're taking it out.
And I know this is one time now.
Yeah.
We have to have a commitment from this legislature to find this money every year for 10 to 12 years. Now, we had a budget surplus, if you want to call it a surplus. We can find the money in a surplus. Instead of finding new ways to spend that money when it becomes available every spring, we can use it for bridges. We don't have to go find new targets to use that money on or to restore scoops, right? It's there. We have, what was the surplus?
It's 100 million.
It was over $100 million this year. So we can fund bridges if we make it a priority, and there needs to be a commitment to make it a priority. The director said that those bridges are dangerous. We need to make it a priority.
But doesn't that conflict with your argument that we're partly doing this in case there's a recession? If there's a recession, there won't be a surplus either, almost certainly.
No. That's in the future. We never know when a recession is coming, right? But if a recession comes, people buy less goods, trucks have to bring less goods in, so there's less truck traffic, right? It just happens in a recession. Trucks aren't needed on the roads as much. So if they're not on the roads, they're not paying tolls. If they're not paying tolls, but we still have bonding debt that must be paid, then we're going to have to find more tolling targets. That's the moral hazard.
Is this $60 million one time? She's talking about $700 million. You're talking about $60 million. So it's an entirely different.
So right now, but there has to be a commitment behind it to find that $60 million or more every year.
So it is an every year proposal. So this may have some one-time money right now.
For right now, it's an amendment to this budget, so we
This budget.
can't.
But your assumption is that somehow or other, somehow, the state would find 16 million every year.
Must,
And here-
must.
Where would you look first in FY17 to start putting together 60 million again?
I haven't looked at that yet, or we haven't looked at that.
Your infrastructure, I'm sorry, Patty, you done with that?
Yet.
Okay. Your infrastructure bank, first of all, there's like 3 questions in there, but are you under the impression they just have $11 million uncommitted right now sitting there? Number 2, there's like a 60-some-odd page proposal for the infrastructure bank. Are you comfortable with it? Creating loan loss reserves, uncapped, giving money to private and residential developers, and is part of what you're trying to do here to sort of say, to the infrastructure bank?
That's actually a question for another time, Kathy, and we'll look out, we can talk to you about that later.
Yeah.
This is really about this article.
Okay, so the 11 million, are you under the impression it's just sitting in a reserve account uncommitted right now, or where would you get it? Where would they get it?
From my understanding, the money is on their balance sheets, on their books, but
Oh, now I see what you're saying.
the
Okay.
governor allowed that money to be scooped again. So she has endorsed the fact that the operation can still sustain itself without the $11 million.
Which is now back in the House Finance.
You're right, it's money that's sitting there that's not committed to anything. That's right, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you were asking.
The reflective license plate thing, I remember, I know they.
It's
that's
been delayed for a
in
number
there,
of
it's been
years.
delayed. Is this another year on top of what's in the budget that passed last week in committee, or is this redirecting the savings from the current budget's delay? The latter?
Yes.
Okay. Can you, I guess, more broadly, I mean, do you have any I mean, we know Republican amendments don't usually do well on the House floor. Do you have any indication, Speaker Mattiello, has he said he might get behind this tomorrow he keeps telling us the tolls are very much, he's very much still in favor of it once they protect the locals.
Okay, so to that I would say that jobs and economy has to be more than a campaign slogan. We really have to be pro-business, and this is a pro-economy, pro-taxpayer, pro-business climate proposal.
So, have you talked to the Speaker about it?
He is aware of it. Our leader did speak with him this weekend about it, so I'm sure he's studying it. I hope that he judges it to be as good as we think it is.
What, I'm sure you noticed as I did, I think it's in Article 2, that there's a provision to provide raises to all the department directors after the legislature goes home. Any thoughts?
Can't speculate on it. I don't know. Is it a rumor?
No, it's in there. It's in the budget. They're changing the law as it stands right now so that the window is already closed under current law. They had to propose it in March, get it done by the end of April. This extends until basically getting something to the legislature by August 30th of this year and this year only. So obviously it has a very specific intent, which they haven't spelled out. Everybody comfortable?
Have you guys studied it at all? I actually haven't studied it. Have you looked at it? Anybody? No? We haven't looked at it.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask another one. Within the budget, you're talking about $60 million a year for your bridge proposal. There's at least $65 million in revenue bonds, tolls supported for the Pell Bridge. And I know the East Bay lawmakers are comfortable with it, but it never goes to the voters. Are you, as Republicans, comfortable with $65 million in any kind of spending that doesn't go to the voters? Even though I think Dan Riley is very proud of it.
There was a real discussion about the Sakonnet River Bridge when we were trying to toll it. And there was testimony, research, lots of it, that said that tolls would damage the economy on the Aquidneck Island, that it would hurt businesses, it would hurt consumers, it would hurt everybody on Aquidneck Island. Now we're talking about putting 17 to 22 tolling gantries across Rhode Island. That will hurt the economy. I know what you're asking.
It's a question
It's been
entirely.
established for a long time that those tolls are there. I don't know how you unring that bell, but we certainly don't want to expand it.
But are you, okay, you don't want to expand, but I'm asking you a different question, which is, in this budget, $65 million that will get floated out, there revenue bonds that are not going to the voters. Is it Republican policy not to put $65 million in expenditures to the voters? You're
No,
okay with that?
no,
Okay.
no, it's not our policy to do that. It's certainly not our policy to put $700 million in revenue bonds on them. I don't know, anyone else want to comment on that? Okay, you're leaving me on the hook. You know, I think wherever we can, it is taxpayers' money, and that I do think that they should be in the conversation, that we should be asking them. This year, there was, you know, a lot of talk about a stadium that was gonna go around taxpayers. It's their money, it's their jobs, right? They should be asked wherever practicable. As far as the Newport Bridge, it's an established tolling, but was I comfortable with the 65 million that was actually going to expand to 152 million? No. I wasn't. And I asked questions in the finance committee because of that. And that's where we talk about the cost of interest and underwriting costs. Whenever you put out a bond, it is more expensive to do whatever project you're trying to get done. Much better to take it from current expenditures than to try to bond it out. I mean, I'm a financial advisor. I actually like people to buy bonds and make money buying bonds, but the truth is, it's not always good for taxpayers.
So are you going to vote against it personally and as a caucus?
Vote against what?
Of the $65 million in revenue bonds for bridge repairs that are not going to voters.
I don't think that we've discussed that individually, so we'll have to.
Do all 12 members of the House Republican caucus support this one?
I believe so, yes.
Do you guys believe so?
Comfortable.
And are we
Yes.
counting 13 or 12, or what are we counting?
12. Well, we have an independent in our midst.
If you want to grow us,
Representative
Kathy will let you.
Filippi is an independent, so it's actually bipartisan, I guess you could say.
Cool.
Questions?
You said,
Any questions for my colleagues?
are there any Democrats who are supporting this with you?
We actually, no, we haven't offered it out to them. We just actually got this written up this weekend, so we've had little time to discuss it with them.
Is this the Republican caucus, is this your top priority on the floor tomorrow, would you say? Because Larry Berman says there's about, the spokesman says about 20 amendments have been filed. I assume this is one of them. And half are House leadership almost. So is this, of the 10 or 11 that are out there, is this your top priority as a caucus?
This is a priority. There are other things that we think will help our state. So everything we put forward is a priority for taxpayers.
And if I could as well, Ted.
Yeah.
It was pointed out earlier that, and I forget by whom, the Republican amendment on the floor stands very little chance. And certainly I won't quarrel with that assessment. However, at a bare minimum, this lets the public understand that not just we as Republicans are thinking of different ways of doing some of the necessary things, but that indeed there are different ways of doing some of these necessary things. Clearly, a plan of this magnitude, there are minutiae that will have to be addressed as we go down. You're looking at a presentation on boards that is very easy with bullet points, but beyond those bullet points are white papers that need to be explored. We're daring to put forth a proposal that's very different than all others before it, because we want people to understand, not only do we as Republicans stand for thinking out of the box, nor are we trapped to just being relegated to having all of our amendments squashed on the floor, but this lets people know there are options. and we must be willing to think out of the box, and we must be willing to dare to dream that we can do things in a different manner than Rhode Island has always done things.
So the Republicans, you do accept the opposite side of this whole proposal, which is the level of bridge repair that's necessary, sort of the governor's target for how much would be good to do a year. Do you think she's on target with that part? I know you want to fund it differently, but do you think the project scale she wants is good?
Well, you know, I think the governor's targeting is pragmatic in the sense that she understands this isn't going to be an immediate injection. So it's a ramp up, probably balanced with those unknowns, which are the anticipation of revenue via the tolls. Are we comfortable with her ramping up? We're comfortable with an immediate injection, which this plan would provide, because there are bridges that are so devastatingly decrepit that we fear driving over them as drivers, because, you know, if you're ever stuck in traffic on one of these bridges and an 18-wheeler goes under that bridge, the whole thing shakes. You know, you're putting your life in your hands when you drive over some of these bridges. So yeah, we want immediate attention to certain areas. Absolutely.
You know, and can I just say this? Does anybody think that realistically we're going to have 150 bridge construction sites going on at the same time? We're not. You're not going to do it all in 1 year. You're not going to take $700 million in 1 year and put it to work. This is a multi-year, either way you do it, it's a multi-year construction effort. So we're going to get it started right away. I mean, the 60 million will be have a federal match with it. That's a lot of money to get started with.
Yeah, and I'm a Republican freshman, been here a few months, and you start to look at how things get done and, where money goes. I've been going to a series of collaboratives that the Rhode Island Foundation has been sponsoring. They've been bringing subject matter experts in from the universities, and Dr. Nicole Martino from the university, Roger Williams University, had come in and she had spoke to us, and she's an expert, I think, on infrastructure and bridges. And she made the point that currently of the 17 cents, every 17 cents we collect for gas tax and for fees that are supposed to go to the roads, only one of that 17 cents is going currently. So we've got dollars and money that's already being collected that's not going to where it's supposed to be going. So now we said we need another how many hundreds of millions more. You look at the article in the paper today on the 610 connector. It's already over budget and the timeline has been pushed back. So, what's the accountability factor when we even have work done? I think Tara Granahan was talking about, she took a piece of asphalt and took it and had it, analyzed in Connecticut, and that, the quality of it. People talk about doing the same roads over and over again. I mean, there's so many factors that we really need to look at. Lots of efficiency, better use of funds. I know our Attorney General yesterday was talking about the beaches, that he'd like beaches to be free again. Well, we asked the question, where's the money going now? We still don't have that answer. What are the costs? So, that's the whole thing. I think it's efficiency, cost, how much we're using. I actually earlier was talking about 911 funds. We collect $17 million a year for 911. You've got $1 on your cell phone, $1 on your landline, plus 26 cents for geotechnology. I visited up to where well, 911 doesn't exist anymore. They put it in the general fund, and a portion of it, 5.4 million, goes to 911, which now falls under public safety. So Rep. Patricia Serpa put a great bill in where she said, we want transparency from our nonprofits. So I said, great, but we need the same thing from our state as well. We need transparency. And so, where is the money going? Is it being dedicated? Is it being properly used? Is it being used in a way that honestly would be efficient? So these are questions that you just start to look at. So certainly, I think Rep. Chippendale is right on. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but we've got to begin to look at this and ask these questions and really hone in, because I think, we've got to be honest and fair to the hardworking taxpayer. We raised the minimum wage a few cents. You take $1 out of, put 60 cents in their pocket, you take $1 out. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. We've got to be more efficient. We've got hardworking Rhode Islanders. A lot of them, I think they said over 20% are making minimum wage. So, these are people we got to be accountable to, and we got to be taking care of and worried about. So that's where I'm coming from.
Back to where we started the conversation, and you said something about somebody somewhere said only one of 17 cents.
No, I didn't say somebody somewhere. I said at a collaborative. I've been going to a series of collaboratives sponsored by Renown Foundation. Dr. Nicole Martino, Rogers University, said only one of every 17 cents.
Of what? Of gas tax?
Gas tax and those fees they collect that is supposed to go to the
Have
roads.
that written down somewhere?
It was in the Providence Journal newspaper.
Okay, so this is a newspaper article you're
Mhm,
quoting?
yep.
Okay.
And she quoted it, during the, and I know Jeffrey, we looked it up at one point. So, and I said to her, I said it would be nice, and at the collaborative, I said, this is an important issue, could we do a follow-up on this? And unfortunately, they moved on to another topic. And I think it was that important, we should have followed up with another collaborative about it. So, yeah, thank you for that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can now put the air conditioning back.
Yeah.